Hello and welcome. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about some crazy history featuring La Bête de Gevaudan, the beast of Gevaudan. And this thing terrorized the French countryside for, was it between 1764 and 1767. So that was 3 years that this thing up here did its thing. The estimate is that it ate around 100 people during that was 100 years. All right, so France had just come out of the 7 Years' War. They had given up a ton of concessions and territories to England, and the general peasantry were not allowed to bear arms because everybody was not happy with the ruling class at the time. So, in order to try to prevent what ends up happening to, Marie Antoinette and, company, in order to prevent everybody, getting killed, they took away their guns. So, there was no way for them to defend themselves by firearm against this creature. And it started in the summer of 1764. It started attacking people. It it attacked mostly women and children, and liked to attack people while they were vulnerable, while they were alone, usually while they were either out in their gardens or taking care of their livestock. It became so bad, in fact, that King Louis XV sent two of the best hunters. And this was after a dragoon captain had spent months trying to catch this thing and was unable to. So these noble, it was a father-son duo, the Denevals, were some of the best hunters in Europe. And so they spent months gallivanting around the French countryside, could not catch this thing. It was described in so many conflicting ways. And the reports often came in, and either there was more than one, or this thing could teleport. So, let's hope that this thing doesn't have magic powers. But it was described as wolf-like. In some cases, it was described as cat-like or lion-like. It has been described as having shaggy fur, shorter fur. More than once, it was described as being lion-like, yet not a lion, with a long, dark or black stripe down its back. There are those who thought it was a werewolf. There are those who thought that it was the devil himself. So there was all kinds of theories as to what in God's name was going on in Gevaudan around this time. Okay, some cases in point that were actually pretty wild. There was a group of kids led by Jacques Portefeuille. They were guarding the cattle, and they had just basically makeshift cattle prods that they were using to get them to do what they wanted. When the beast attacked, and it grabbed one of them and tried to take off with them. And they were going to just be like, peace, homie, and leave the poor guy, but they decided, this was just a group of kids, age 8 to 11. They decided, you know what, we probably should help the dude. So Jacques Portefeuille rallied the other kids, and they just stabbed the shit out of this thing. And eventually, an adult came up with a pitchfork, and they all drove it off. The king awarded a ton of money to the survivors, and to Jacques Portefeuille himself, said that he was going to pay for his private education. So apparently this kid actually did get a private education and had like a bunch of money like that the king set aside for him and everything. So that's pretty cool. Um, and another thing that happened was this girl. She was like 18, 19, and she was with her younger sister, and they were attacked by the beast. And she had a staff that they had attached a knife from an old bayonet that didn't work anymore because again, they weren't allowed to have firearms. So she had affixed the bayonet at the end of this thing, and she stabs it right in the chest and drove it away. So this Captain Duhamel and 300 dragoons couldn't catch this thing. Couldn't do anything with it. These two fancy foo-foo French hunters couldn't kill this thing. But, by God, this girl stabbed it. And apparently wounded it badly. And it ran off. So, I mean, craziness, man. In another instance, a mother of 7 fought this creature off to try to save her children. She was out with, 3 of her children, and it ended up grabbing one of them and partially eating him. But she saved the rest of her children. She literally jumps on this thing's back, gets it in her sleeper hold, and she's riding this thing like a bucking bronco, and it jumps over the wall with one of her children, and she was 7 months pregnant too. She climbs the wall. She climbs a 6-foot wall, and jumps on the damn thing again. And I mean, this was incredible until one of her adolescent sons apparently heard the commotion and came with a pike and stabbed it and drove it off. So this thing has been shot at. It's been stabbed. It's been choked. It's been beaten. And there's no getting rid of this thing. So, eventually, the Denevals were disgraced because they had been unable to catch it. They used poison bait. They used traps. They used snares. They put up ambush points along known game trails. They, tried everything. I know that the captain of the Dragoons, because it had a predilection for hunting women, tried to get dudes to dress up as women, dress in women's clothing to try to lure it out. So the king sends his personal gun bearer. Basically, he's the personal bodyguard of the king. And so the guy finally, I think it was late 1765, he shoots a wolf. And it's the biggest wolf that anybody has ever seen. I mean, this thing is enormous. And the thing is, though, it has dew claws, which suggests that it was a wolf-dog hybrid. Now, that's a whole thing in itself. And so, he sends it to the king, and, he collects the reward, everybody thinks, it's dead. Well, 3 months later, the thing is at it again. So, this goes on until 1767, when a peasant named Jean Chastel shoots it with a silver bullet. So there's the modern origin of using silver to kill a werewolf. So there's so much speculation as to what this thing was. My opinion is that it was a subadult lion that some nobleman, / big game hunter brought some lions back. Now, Europeans would not know what a subadult male lion would look like. See, he doesn't have the mane. He does not look like the stylized artwork of lions that Europeans would have been familiar with. There's suggestions that it may have been a hyena, that it was a striped hyena. There are those who felt that it was just the wolf dog, hypothesis. Or could it have been a werewolf? You decide.